Let me begin with gratitude. Gratitude to this congregation who has opened their doors to us, opened my heart to you. Let me begin with gratitude to the Clergy Association who voted the new kid on the block to be the one to give the sermon. Let me begin with gratitude for a beautiful recitation of the Quran. It made my heart swell. And to see these beautiful, strong, young women singing of peace. And for the breath that met me this morning and lets me be here with you today. So I have a question to ask you first. It requires a raise of hands. Have any of you been in an airport in the last month? How about between now and the end of the calendar year? Okay, so we're in good company, over half of us here. So I have a story to tell you. You didn't know, but I am going to be talking to you about airports because I think they are important places where we gather together. Earlier this month, I flew from here to there, and then to there, which was a little bit further south, but not so much west from the earlier there. And then I came back to here. 5 airports in all. I was not in any of them for any long length of time, particularly O'Hare, where I had exactly 18 minutes to run from one concourse to the next. I made it. One of the airports where I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I had never been before. I went there on my way back from Knoxville, Tennessee, where also I had never been before. My layover there was a luxurious 2 hours. So as I sauntered from one concourse to the next, I came upon a sign that said, "Chapel." And it reminded me that I had not yet meditated that day. And so I proceeded, time on my hands, to a sacred space set aside for travelers in need of prayer, of contemplation, of a slower pace. The path to the chapel was well marked, and I was thankful for this. Once I had a 5-hour layover in Houston. 5 hours in Houston, in the airport. Not long enough to leave, not long enough to really stay and have fun. So there, I went looking for the chapel, and it was not well marked. And I asked employees of the airport, they had no idea where it was. I went looking, I nearly gave up, and then it appeared. But that wasn't the case in Charlotte. It was well marked, and even though I felt like I was walking on corridors where I really didn't belong, the signs kept getting me in the right direction until finally I arrived. One could not call the space of the chapel spacious, but still it was quiet and set aside from the rest of the airport traffic, and it was just perfect for my purposes. So I peered in the window and saw one person, a Muslim man on his prayer rug in a very snug, cozy space. And as I know to be true in Islam, it is traditional to have separate space for men and women to pray. And I did not want to disturb him, and I had time on my hands, so I waited, happily. And perhaps this is true of you too, but when I am a visitor to a house of worship that is not my faith tradition, I try to learn and follow the customs there. In my brother's egalitarian shul, I wear a kippah like the other women do. When I go visiting Friday Juma prayers at the Mosque of Friends, I wear a scarf to cover my head. And because I am not well practiced and it slips, it is such a joy for me when the women come and gently and sweetly make sure it stays in place. I do this even though this is not my faith's tradition. I do it as an act of humility and an act of curiosity. I do this even though it is not my faith's custom it is not my faith's custom. We are inclusive about gender, where people sit, who is our leaders, and our whole understanding of what gender is. This learning and respecting each other is very much the shared world I want to be a part of. This is the shared world I want to build together with you, where our faiths and traditions meet, are honored, are given opportunities for coexistence, holding out the possibility of life-affirming surprises when our shared lives are woven together. This is the shared world I want to be a part of, where we bring humility and curiosity and a strong dose of what the Bishop of Sweden, the late Christer Stendahl, calls holy envy. Holy envy is a deep appreciation for something not found in your own faith tradition, but found in another's. It requires a kind of spiritual maturity and strong sense of security in one's own religious tradition, and allows for those life-affirming surprises, the kind we are in such desperate need of these days. Of course, there had been other people in that chapel before that man who I saw praying, there before him and there after he left, after I left. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, in just the space of a year's time, certainly in a decade. Jews from this country or from abroad, Hindus or Baha'i, Sikh or Catholic, Buddhists, spiritual seekers, Mormons, Coptic Christians, any from the array of Protestant denominations. It was a small room, but room enough for all. As those knitted circles that were given out by the crafty ladies here, one race, many cultures, one place. There is a wonderful poem from the Palestinian-American poet Naomi Shihab Nye, one of the kindest women I have ever had the chance to meet. And in the story, Naomi encounters a wailing woman dressed in old world clothes at the gate where their shared flight has just been delayed. The airline staff does not know quite what to do with this woman being so troublesome. What is her problem? And then, help, please. So Naomi, whose first language is English, speaks to the old woman in halting Arabic. And so now let me tell you the story from the author's own voice. She says, the minute this old woman heard any words she knew, however poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought the flight had been canceled entirely. She needed to be in El Paso for major medical treatment the next day. And I said, no, you're fine, you'll get there. Who's picking you up? Let's call him. We called her son, and I spoke with him in English. I told him I would stay with his mother till we got on the plane, and I would ride next to her. We were flying Southwest. She talked to him. Then we called her other sons just for fun. Then we called my dad, and he and she spoke for a while in Arabic and found out, of course, they had 10 shared friends. Then I thought, just for the heck of it, why not call some Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her? And this all took 2 hours, and she was laughing a lot by then, telling about her life, patting my knee, answering questions. And as the story continues, the woman pulls out a bag of Mamul cookies, and maybe you know them. They're traditional for that part of the world she calls home. They are made of dates and nuts and powdered sugar. Can you imagine this, right? And she offers them widely. And again, we return to the story in the poet's amazement. Not a single person declined. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the mom from California, the lovely woman from Laredo, they were all covered in the same powdered sugar, all smiling. There is no better cookie. And then the airline broke out free beverages from the huge coolers, and two little girls, probably Girl Scouts, right? They ran around serving us all, and they were covered in powdered sugar too. And so holding hands with the old woman, at this point the poet reflects, I looked around that gate of late and weary ones and thought, this is the world I want to live in, the shared world. Not a single person in the gate, once the crying and confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about any other person. This can still happen. Not everything is lost. This story reminds me of a prayer from a minister from my own Unitarian Universalist tradition, the Reverend Kathleen McTeague. She prays, we do not seek a unity that would deny our differences. We seek rather a deeper union, a union woven through choice and intent, through time and attention, through respect and compassion, until we recognize that we have become a whole cloth, a cloth made rich and textured and vibrant through our differences. Each of us can hear in the beating of our own hearts the ancient rhythm of the loom at work. We are woven together. We are bound to one another. We belong to and with each other. This is the shared world, the woven world that is in our hands to create. Through interfaith services, community dinners and desserts, through connections with other houses of worship, through coming to the aid of someone suffering or companioning someone who is bursting with delight, through learning each other's histories, through cultivating holy envy in ourselves and in our kin. We cannot wait on anyone else to create this shared world. We can't wait until we think we already know the full story or have all the right knowledge or a guarantee of avoiding accidental offense. It is up to us. It is up to us now. So let us make the world we want to live in, the shared world. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost. Amen, and blessed be.